Now, China's two major shipbuilding firms have announced a $16 billion merger. It comes amid a push by the Trump administration to rebuild American shipyards. China State Shipbuilding will this week absorb China Shipbuilding Industry and take the sole listing on the Shanghai Stock Exchange. The tie-up will create the world's biggest shipbuilding company with around 17% of the global market. In the United States, Donald Trump wants to revive American shipbuilding. Part of that plan will see Washington impose port fees from October on Chinese-linked ships. This will affect vessels that are either Chinese-owned or built, and that's given a boost to rival companies such as those in Japan and South Korea. Now, China dominates global shipbuilding. Its output accounted for more than half of the world's total last year, with America only producing 0.05%. That means China already owns 232 times the shipbuilding capacity of the United States. Martin Stopford is the author of the book Maritime Economics and is a renowned expert on the global shipping industry. Thank you so much for joining us. I was reading up on these two companies. They used to be one company. China then split them up. Now they're getting back together again. What's the thinking behind this, do you think?
I believe the real issue here is technology. The maritime industry has been through 20 or 30 years when technology has not changed very much, and suddenly it's come to a watershed where it has to do two major things. First of all, it has to move along the road towards zero carbon. Regulators are requiring this, and it needs to bring on board the digital technology and artificial intelligence, which have been used by motor vehicles for many years, but are hardly used at all in shipping. And it's a tough business, and I think the great logic behind bringing these two groups back together again is that it means you can plan and coordinate and fund investment in these new technologies.
What has given China the edge? Clearly a leader in shipbuilding, and what will this merger do to perhaps further itself in this race?
China grew the last 15 years mainly on the basis of being a bit cheaper than the other big shipbuilders in Japan and Korea. I mean, you could get a decent ship for 10% less in China, and that's a lot of money on a $100 million ship. So that helped them a lot. They got a lot of benefit out of the fact that they were part of the government's Beijing's long-term vision. Shipbuilding and marine equipment have been in that vision for at least 20 years, and I think that gave them the framework to grow. And most importantly of all, China is also the world's biggest cargo producer and importer and exporter in the world, about 2 billion tons added in the last 20 years. And that meant that the shipyards have lots of domestic customers who can come and, that's what every shipyard wants is somebody to help them out when the market's a bit quiet. And the shipbuilding market is very volatile. So that domestic market's been a big help to the shipbuilders.
From October, the United States is planning to tax any ships that are either linked to China or built by China. Is that going to have a big impact?
Well, I think we've all been following this in many different areas. I mean, behind it, I think there is a perfectly reasonable logic, and I think you mentioned it yourself earlier, that the United States has not really been very involved in merchant shipbuilding at all for the last 3 or 4 decades, and it's very expensive to build ships there, and suddenly they've realized that maybe they want to have a little bit of independence from Asia, which now it's not just China, but Korea and Japan are about well over 90% of world shipbuilding. So this is just them looking at it and saying, well, we would like to have a slightly more stable situation. And one element, as you mentioned, is the tax on Chinese-built ships. which account for about half of the fleet at the moment. And the other factors that are going to influence this are the Americans want to build more. They want to encourage people to build ships in the United States, and also to carry export cargoes such as LNG in US-built ships. And so that's, it's one of many plans that they have underway at the moment.